The message came while I was still at work, a simple text from my mother that read, "Dinner Sunday night. We'd love to see you. Just us." I stared at it longer than I needed to. It had been months since we last spoke properly, and even then, the conversation felt like small talk wrapped in ice. Still, some naive part of me hoped maybe this dinner meant something had changed. Sunday came, and I brought a bottle of wine, like I always did. I even wore the blouse my mom once said brought out the color in my eyes. Their house still smelled like cinnamon and wood polish, like it always had, and for a moment, I almost forgot why I kept my distance. They greeted me with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. My brother Marcus was already there, slouched on the couch, scrolling through his phone like he couldn't care less. My sister Chloe stood in the kitchen pretending to be busy, even though Mom had done all the cooking. It was so perfectly staged and unnaturally warm that I should have known something was coming. As we sat down to eat, I found myself drifting into memories of the mortgage payments I covered for this very house when Dad was out of work, of the $12,000 I wired Marcus when he got his second DUI and needed to avoid jail time, of the influencer kit Chloe begged me for because her dreams were valid too. I'd done it all quietly, without ever asking for anything back. I thought that's what family meant. I thought that was love. Even when they called me successful, it never felt like pride. It felt like something they resented. Like my success was a threat or a tool they could use whenever they needed to patch another hole in the family. Dinner was tense beneath the surface. Smiles plastered too tight. Laughter a beat too late. We talked about the weather, the neighbor's new puppy, and even Chloe's new hair serum sponsorship. It was all fluff. No one asked how I was doing. Not really. Then came dessert. Mom served lemon cake, my favorite, while Dad cleared his throat like he was preparing for a speech. That's when they dropped it. Calmly. Almost like it was no big deal. "We just wanted to let you know," Dad said. "We've updated the will." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. "All of it will go to Marcus and Chloe," Mom added, as if it were just a line item on a grocery list. I blinked. "Wait, all of it?" "You don't need it," Chloe chimed in. "You have your own house, your own business. This is just fair." "Fair," I said, my voice low. "I've helped you all for years. Mortgage, bailouts, gear, groceries. Was that not family too?" Mom gave me that look, the one she always reserved for when I was being difficult. "Sweetheart, this isn't about that. You're already so blessed. Your siblings need more support." Dad added, "We didn't want to burden you with more responsibility. You've done enough." The way they said it, like I should be grateful they were finally cutting me out of something. Like I should thank them for their generosity in excluding me. Chloe leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. Besides, money's not everything, right? It was all there in their faces. The entitlement, the manipulation, the quiet gaslighting dressed up as family logic. They weren't grateful for my support. They expected it. They never saw me as a daughter, just a resource. And the second I stopped handing things over without question, they made it clear I was no longer part of the core. I looked around the table at the people I once called home, and something inside me broke. Not loudly. Not in anger. Just a quiet, clean snap. "I see," I said, standing up. Mom started to say something else, but I didn't stay to hear it. I left the cake untouched on the plate. I walked out of that house with my head high and my heart splitting open. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was walking away from a lie I'd lived in for far too long. They only loved me when I was silent, when I was giving, when I made myself small enough to fit inside their idea of what a daughter should be. But I wasn't small anymore. And I wasn't going to stay silent. The next morning, my phone was already buzzing before I even opened my eyes. 7 missed calls. 3 voicemails. A handful of texts, all from my family. I didn't open them right away. I just stared at the screen, stomach twisting with that familiar mix of dread and guilt they were so good at pulling out of me. I finally gave in and played the first voicemail. It was my mom's voice, soft and dramatic, like she was auditioning for a sad movie. "Anna, honey, I don't know what came over you last night. We were trying to share some news as a family. You stormed out and hurt your siblings deeply. I know you're under stress, but this was uncalled for. Stormed out? I walked. I didn't yell. I didn't even cry in front of them. The next message was from Dad. Short, cold. You need to call your mother and apologize. This kind of behavior is beneath you. Apologize? For being blindsided and betrayed? Then came Marcus. Of course. Look, Anna, I don't know what your deal is, but maybe you should talk to someone. Everyone's worried. You haven't been acting right for a while. Just check in with someone. Worried. That word had claws. It wasn't about concern. It was about control. Even Walter texted. He always tried to play the neutral peacekeeper, the steady hand. Maybe it's best to just talk it out. Apologize, smooth things over. It's family. You don't want to burn bridges. You can't rebuild. I stared at that message the longest. Coming from him, it hurt more than it should have. He didn't mean harm, I knew that. But he also didn't understand the weight I'd been carrying for years, while everyone else just passed me the bill. At work, I kept my head down, hoping to disappear into tasks and spreadsheets. But just before lunch, Lisa from marketing slid into the break room beside me, pretending to be casual. Hey, I ran into your brother Marcus at a mutual friend's get-together over the weekend. He mentioned you were going through some stuff. My heart dropped. What kind of stuff? I asked. She shrugged like it didn't matter. Just like burnout or anxiety or something. He said he's worried about you. I gave a small, polite smile and walked away before I could say something I'd regret. Burnout? Anxiety? He was already setting the stage, wasn't he? Whispering to people in my orbit. Making sure that if I ever spoke up, I'd be labeled emotional, unstable, and dramatic. By the time I got home, I could barely breathe. I sat on the edge of my bed with my phone in one hand and the therapist's card in the other. I hadn't called her in months. Thought I didn't need to anymore. But that night, I dialed. When she picked up, I didn't even say hello properly. I just started talking, then sobbing. I feel like I'm losing my mind, I said between breaths. They're making me question everything. They're twisting the story so I look like the problem. I walked away because they hurt me, and now they're painting me as broken. She let me finish. Then she said the one sentence that brought me back from the edge. You're not the crazy one. You're the clear one. I just sat there, stunned. That one line landed harder than anything else had in days. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't unstable. I wasn't selfish. I was awake, and that terrified them. Later that night, I opened Instagram. I wish I hadn't. Chloe had posted a story with a pastel pink background and a moody sunset photo. Over it she wrote, "Some sisters use money to control. Real love doesn't come with receipts." No names. No direct call-out. But anyone who knew us? They'd get it. I didn't respond. Didn't comment. Instead, I took a screenshot and saved it. I opened a new folder on my phone, named it Receipts, and added that story to it. Then I went back through my old messages, voice memos, and even some comments on Chloe's older posts, comments where friends made shady remarks about certain people always needing the spotlight. One by one, I added them. They wanted to paint me as the villain, as greedy, cold, ungrateful. But I knew the truth. And now I had the proof. Every lie they told, every twist they tried to spin, I was going to catch it. Not to lash out. Not for revenge. But because for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let their version be the only story told. It was almost midnight when I got home, tired and aching for a hot shower and some quiet. But when I slid my key into the lock, the door wouldn't budge. I tried again, harder. Nothing. My stomach dropped. I leaned closer and noticed a thick grayish substance jammed in the doorframe. I touched it gently, hard, rubbery, expanding foam. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Some kind of weird maintenance accident. But deep down, I knew better. I lived in a quiet building. Nothing ever happened without notice. And something about it, about the petty, targeted nature, screamed one name. I went downstairs and asked the overnight security guy to check the cameras. He hesitated, but I wasn't backing down. We scrolled through the footage until we saw him, Marcus. Hood up, looking around nervously, shaking a canister at my door like he was doing some arts and crafts project. I watched myself on the screen, walking into frame 30 minutes later, clueless. I filed the report the next morning. I handed over the USB with the footage, every second of it. The officer raised his eyebrows when I explained who the guy was. "Your brother?" he asked. I nodded. "Still want to press charges?" "Yes," I said without blinking. "I do." It wasn't just about the phone. It was about everything. The years of swallowing their disrespect, cleaning up their messes, paying their bills while they call me selfish behind my back. This was the line they weren't going to cross without consequence. 2 days later, the family group chat lit up like a wildfire. Text after text, missed calls, voicemails. Chloe wrote, "You called the cops? On family?" Like I'd committed treason. Mom's voicemail was full of sobs. "How could you humiliate us like this? Your brother made a mistake. He was upset. You made it worse." Then came Marcus, angry and defensive. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always the victim. You could have just talked to me." They weren't sorry. They were just mad they couldn't control what came next. Walter was the only one who didn't yell. He asked to meet in person. We sat on a park bench while kids screamed in the distance and birds picked at crumbs nearby. He tried to smooth it over like he always did. "Can't we just drop the charges and move forward? It's family, Anna." He wasn't thinking straight. You know how things get. I looked at him for a long moment. "Do you know how much it costs to get that door fixed?" He hesitated. "A few hundred? 3,000, I said. "And that doesn't cover the mental toll of wondering if someone in your bloodline might escalate next time." He went quiet. "I'll drop the charges if they pay the $3,000 and give me a written apology. Not just for the phone. For all of it." He blinked. "You want money and an apology?" "Yes," I said. "It's the least they can do." A week later, I got a bank transfer. No note. No apology. Just money. Cold and clean. That was fine. I didn't need their words anymore. I had my own. That night, I sat down and opened Facebook. I didn't scream. I didn't rant. I wrote the truth. In plain language. I listed the years of support they never acknowledged, paying off our parents' mortgage when foreclosure was weeks away, covering Marcus's legal fees after his DUI, funding Chloe's entire influencer rebrand, from camera to ring light. I explained how I never asked for a dime back, how I stayed quiet because I thought that's what family did. Then I wrote about the dinner, the will, the fallout, the vandalism. I kept it clean, but I didn't hold back. I ended with this. I used to think love meant sacrificing without keeping score. But what I've learned is, real love doesn't punish you the moment you stop giving. I didn't lose my family. I just finally saw them. I hit post and turned off my phone. By the next morning, there were over 400 likes. Dozens of comments. Messages from cousins, old family friends, even people I barely remembered from childhood. "Thank you for speaking up. I always wondered why they treated you like that. You're not alone." Even Walter messaged me. "I wish I'd understood sooner." The power wasn't in the post. It was in the shift. The story they tried so hard to write about me, ungrateful, cold, selfish, was unraveling. People were seeing the truth. And for the first time, I wasn't hiding behind politeness or silence. I was done protecting people who never protected me. Blocking them didn't feel like revenge. It felt like putting down something heavy I'd been carrying for too long. At first, the silence felt strange, almost eerie. My phone was quiet. No more passive-aggressive group chats, no guilt-ridden voicemails, no one trying to twist my feelings like a rubber band. Just quiet. But as the days passed, I realized this silence wasn't empty. It was mine. It wasn't the kind of silence that made you anxious or afraid. It was a silence I earned. A silence that came with breathing room, with peace, with the space to hear myself think again. I stopped checking social media. I deleted old voice messages. Even packed up a box of family photos and slid it to the back of my closet. Not out of bitterness, but to permit myself to move forward without needing to rewrite the past. A week later, I got an email. It was from Lorraine, my mom's older sister. We'd never been especially close, but she was always the quiet observer at family gatherings. She never took sides, never raised her voice, just smiled politely, brought desserts, and disappeared before the argument started. The subject line simply said, "Coffee." I didn't know what to expect, but something in me said to go. We met at a small cafe near my office. She was already seated when I walked in, holding a mug of tea and a small paper bag of pastries, which she said were my favorite. "I read your post," she said, once we'd settled in. I didn't know. I knew things were complicated, but not like that. I didn't say anything right away. I let her talk. She looked at me with eyes that weren't filled with pity, but something softer. Regret, maybe. I should have spoken up. Years ago. I saw how much they leaned on you, how easily they dismissed you when you weren't doing something for them. But I stayed neutral. I told myself it wasn't my place. She took a slow breath. "I'm sorry." Something in my chest loosened. Not because her apology fixed anything, but because it was the first one I'd received that didn't come with conditions or justifications. She told me about the family. Marcus was struggling. His contract work had dried up, and the rumor was he was on the verge of losing his apartment. Chloe had lost one of her biggest sponsorships after a messy spat with the brand on social media. My parents? They had taken part-time jobs at a local grocery store and a pharmacy. Retirement had been postponed. I listened without reacting. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood it had never been about what I gave. It had always been about how easily they took. All those years I paid bills, fixed problems, held my tongue. They didn't love me for it. They didn't respect me. They simply used me. And when I stopped, that's when they noticed. I didn't feel vengeful. I didn't smile at their struggles or feel some grand sense of justice. What I felt was clarity. I'd been taught that love meant endurance, that being a good daughter meant giving until it hurt. But survival meant walking away before it destroyed you. Lorraine reached for my hand. "Whatever you need, I'm here. I mean that now." I nodded, thankful. And then I left. Not with anger, not with sadness. Just with a calm I hadn't felt in years. That night, I opened my laptop and stared at the calendar. My fingers hovered for a moment before I clicked through to book a flight, Florence. A city I had always dreamed of visiting, but never found the time for. There was always someone who needed something. A deadline. A family emergency. A reason to stay. But this time, I wasn't waiting for permission. I booked a small apartment near the Arno River. 2 weeks. No itinerary. No one is calling me. No one is demanding anything. For the first time in years, the only name on my list was mine. Florence was everything I needed and nothing I expected. The streets were soft with history, and the air felt different, lighter, like it hadn't learned how to carry the weight of other people's expectations. I walked everywhere. No maps, no pressure. Just one foot in front of the other. There was no one waiting for my texts. No one was asking where I was or when I'd be home. I sat in quiet cafes with chipped tables and warm espresso, watching strangers talk with their hands. I journaled for the first time in years, not out of obligation but curiosity. I wrote about the ache that had lived in my chest for so long, and how it finally felt like it was loosening. Most of the time, I didn't write about them at all. On the 5th day, Lorraine messaged me. She'd been respectful of my space since we'd met. No guilt. No heavy check-ins. Just quiet support. She'd attached a photo. It was my mother, Marlene, sitting alone in a corner booth of a cheap diner. Her hair was thinner than I remembered. Her face looked older, more tired. She wasn't smiling, just staring into her coffee cup like it might explain something to her. I stared at the picture for a long moment. Then I saved it and put my phone away. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That part of my story wasn't mine to fix anymore. When I came back to Seattle, something in me felt new. Not healed completely, but rooted. The kind of feeling that lets you breathe down into your stomach. I hosted a small dinner for friends, just 4 of us. People who had stood by me without expecting anything in return. We cooked together, played music that made us laugh, and poured too much wine. No one talked over each other. No one kept score. There was no tension. Just warmth. Just kindness. Later that night, I stood at the sink, sleeves rolled up, slowly washing the plates while soft jazz played in the background. I looked out the window at the quiet street, the gentle lights glowing outside, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. They didn't leave me anything in the will. No property. No savings. No heirlooms. But without meaning to, they gave me something far more valuable. They gave me freedom. And in that freedom, I found myself. I used to think love meant giving until there was nothing left, staying quiet to keep the peace, and stretching myself thin so others could be comfortable. But real love, true love, doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't demand your silence. It doesn't feed on your money, your time, or your soul. Sometimes, the first real love you ever give is the love you give to yourself when you finally walk away. And I did. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in truth. And that truth set me free.